There's people that are doing that are getting some wrong in the society, and then they complain to the society itself and say, "Hey, that should not be allowed because I'm very sad." That's usually what a law comes from.
The point of insider trading laws is not to stop the fairness in the market. It is to stop someone expropriating information that they got from a privileged position, stealing from the company that you got the information from. It's not about the people that are trading against you on the NASDAQ, right?
When people call the Maduro bet insider trading, one, show me anything that shows that information was insider, right? There's a lot of threads on Twitter right now, and let me tell you, especially the look on chain dudes who are like, I'm a sleuth, look at me. They're wrong.
Welcome to Uneasy Money, because what happens on chain never stays on chain. I'm here with my co-host Taylor Monahan, security at MetaMask, and today we have a very special guest, Marc Zeller, founder of the Aave Chan Initiative, ACI, a provider for the Aave DAO. One quick thing before we start: nothing you hear on Uneasy Money is financial advice. We're just three builders talking about what's happening on chain, and we want you to always do your own research before aping it. You can find all of our disclosures at unchainedcrypto.com/uneasymoney.
Multi-Chain Advisors is an emerging technology growth firm that has helped create $50+ billion in enterprise value for 80+ clients over the past 4 years. They're the partner to help navigate markets. Build real traction today at multichainadv.com. Mantle is launching the Global Hackathon 2025 to accelerate the future of real-world assets. With a $150,000 prize pool, backing from a $4 billion treasury, and direct access to Bybit's 7 million plus users, this is the ultimate ecosystem for builders.
Hey guys. So before we get started, Marc, you had one of the most banger tweets of the year so far. We're only a week in. Your tweet about Macron after the Maduro exfiltration, I guess. We don't have the technology to pull up tweets, but if I remember correctly, it was something along the lines of, this is such a terrible situation. I hope that nothing happens to my beloved president who lives at Rue, wherever the presidential palace is in Paris. So that was that. I laughed out loud at that one. That was very, very impressive.
In France, we have two parts of our culture that are extremely important, being very pissed at our politician, and we love the good sarcasm. And I think it was a good mix of those that resonate with some people.
Yeah, definitely. It landed. So really awesome to have you here, because our main topic today is going to be Aave's governance war. And the question of who really controls Aave, but also probably more broadly, who really controls any protocol. Are they controlled? What are the mechanisms? So basically, here's the recap, I think. And Tay, you've brushed up on this a little bit, so jump in if anything's off here. But a few weeks ago, now maybe we'll zoom out even more, right? Aave, I would say, for most DeFi enthusiasts, is the top, if not the top 3 absolute worst case examples of good governance in DeFi, DAO governance, not having misaligned incentives, despite the fact that there is a Labs and a DAO, and there are some potential points of friction. And I think it's worth mentioning. Stani's a good friend of mine, and I think part of that is that Stani has kind of consistently showed up and tried to do the right thing for Aave. But then you also have people like Marc, who are extreme, like maybe the most aligned with Aave, the protocol, and Aave the DAO, right? And it creates a really good tension and checks and balances for how a DAO should operate. And there's a lot of people who have kind of given up hope on DAOs. Tay, you may not be one.
at me.
Don't look at me.
And so, I think like for a lot of us, we look at Aave, we've got Aave bags, first of all. We see Aave governance as like one of the shining lights of, maybe this DAO thing can actually work. And that's kind of been the historical backdrop of all of this stuff, right? And then a few weeks, and this is not the first time there's been tension. Of course, it's a DAO, there's going to be tension. But then a few weeks ago, Aave Labs switched its front-end swap integration from Paraswap to CalSwap, which, fairly uncontroversial. But then they routed what is effectively low eight figures of fee revenue that used to go into the DAO treasury to the Aave Labs multi-sigs, I guess, right? And there was no discussion or vote on this or whatever. And the community was like, whoa, you're taking our money. And, kind of privatizing these fees, right? And then I think the next point was this kind of view of like, who is owed those fees? This question of like, well, this is a front end and, it's not the protocol, et cetera. And so, maybe it's fine if we just do this, right? But there is like I think a principled view in the world that, if you are a DAO, that things should go through the DAO, that there should be governance around it. And so this kind of escalated, right? A snapshot proposal was drafted by Aave's former CTO. And this was submitted to transfer Aave's brand assets, domains, and IP to DAO control. But
hold on. So that thread, that governance forum thread, that is in part, in my opinion, my view, right? That is in part was sort of kicking off the governance around literally the domains and the brand and stuff, right? But it was actually in reality serving as a central place for everyone to discuss this broader issue. And then there were these little spin-off things, which is why what happened next was, I think, caught everyone off guard, because this wasn't necessarily your typical, we're going to do a proposal, we're going to do a snapshot, we're going to then, through the normal governance things. This was like the place for everyone to sort of like get caught up on the conversation, the drama, etc. Yeah.
I think what is important, if we have to do the recap of the situation, is that it all started by a token holder. So a token holder and also a very large independent delegate of the Aave DAO basically found out that Aave Lab redirected the fee. And it's basically like, if you have an Apple store and you sell the iPhone, the Apple gets the money on the iPhone that are sold, but overnight there's an executive at Apple that say, well, every app that every user that pays some money to use an app on the Apple store, the fee goes to us. And the token holder was not very happy. So the community said, well, maybe we should have a discussion to have a revenue share, this kind of stuff, and make sure unilateral control and redirection of fee cannot happen. And the reaction of Aave Lab at that point was like, well, we do the front end, that's our project, and we don't have anything to discuss with you guys. And that's when the discussion basically escalated to, okay, let's put the fee on the side for one moment and discuss who can do what in the Aave ecosystem using the Aave brand, and who actually own the Aave brands. And that's where the proposal from Ernesto, former CTO of Aave Labs, that spin out to create BGD Labs, and is now the core maintainer of the Aave code base for the DAO as a service provider, escalated to say, okay, maybe the DAO should have a legal entity and own those brand assets, and then delegate that back to Aave Labs. So we are sure that those strategic assets cannot be monetized unilaterally to one party or redirected completely to other purpose that would not serve the Aave protocol or the Aave token holders. And that's where I think the conversation got interesting, because the swap fee itself is not so important. It's less than 10% of the Aave global revenue. Obviously, it's important that most revenue goes back to the token holders, but I think the real meat of this conversation is about ownership of those assets.
Yeah.
100%.
And you know, we joke about like you know, IP ownership and you know, who owns a brand and DAO structures, right, all the time. I remember back in the day when we were deprecating Haven and moving to Synthetix, we got on a call with the lawyers, and I was like, guys, this is taking so long. Like, why can't we shut it down? And they're like, we don't have anywhere to put. If you don't have an entity, you got to put the Haven brand somewhere. And I was like, what? Like, no, like, just like, I don't like, just put it in, you know, put it on the chain or something. I don't know. I was like, I don't know what to tell you guys. And so there is, I think, you know, an interesting nuance in this as well of like, okay, how do you even wrap IP and brand assets, etc., into a legal wrapper and then put that on chain? You make it an NFT that says Aave, like what, you know, there's
the Aave brand.
Not so good that is new in the ecosystem. There's been a bunch of implementation of other DAOs and other ecosystems. So Lido has a legal entity, Morpho has a French non-profit association owning the brand, the assets, all this kind of stuff. So it's not really a problem. Like it's a technical problem.
No,
it's a legal problem, but it's something that can be solved literally overnight.
Yeah, it's fairly easy to solve it. It's just, it is, I think, somewhat interesting, right? That like we have these intangible assets, right? IP, brand, etc. And in order for a DAO to own them, they kind of have to be inside this legal wrapper. It's like one of the weird meat space things that like bridges across, you know, both a DAO, and yeah, no one's turned them into an NFT yet. I don't know. Maybe.
No, that would be a good option. But at the end of the day, I think ownership and safeguard is important when you do a business. And especially when that business, the DAO and the protocol, is $1 billion business and hundreds of millions of dollars per year business. And what you want to prevent when you have this kind of business is to have unity or control that can redirect the revenue or redirect the brand or redirect the product. And I'm actually old enough to remember, maybe Taylor had to submit to that, but to remember when my Ether wallet Twitter account became my crypto.
Oh, I remember.
And
The
situation was very different because obviously I was a big mycrypto.com fan, and we used the project, and most of the team follow you, Taylor. So the situation is quite different. But at the end of the day, one very important brand asset got changed overnight in terms of control. And maybe that's a situation the Aave DAO wants to prevent in the future. If Stani wants to create myaave.com and change the brand asset, because he has the front end, the domains, and deposit on another code base and another protocol he owns 100%, where the token holders are no control, that's something we want to prevent. I know Stani, and I work with him for nearly a decade now. I know he's very Aave aligned, and he has his own alignment as well. And it's also a bit of game theory of where you put the right Nash equilibrium to make sure that everyone has their own incentive, but you need to have a framework that is safe for every actor's best interest. Okay. And I think the best Nash equilibrium is to say, okay, there's going to be a neutral legal wrapper that is the DAO that will own the asset, that will protect them. And then there's going to be mandates back to Aave Labs, back to Stani, to say, okay, you can continue to do exactly what you do right now, but ultimate ownership belongs to the DAO. So if there's something that breaks the trust between the token holders and the labs for any kind of reason in the future, there's less of an asymmetric relationship.
Yeah, there's recourse, right? You have some level of recourse, right? But
Well, and it sets expectations, and in reality, like the Mu My Crypto split and this situation, they're very different in basically every way, except for like the core root of everything, which is that we were all working on something that was valuable to other people, that other people's livelihoods, like our team, but also like everyone that was using our product was relying on. Thank goodness we did not have tokens.
by the way, everyone,
Everyone, the entire ecosystem.
like, it was systemically risky for all of like Ethereum for this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we were wildly aware of this, but we were also, when we had first started it, it was just like this open source GitHub repo. We had no company. There was no company, guys. There was none whatsoever. Like, it wasn't a DAO. It was literally just a repo that we threw together, right? And so then fast forward that the combination of the value and the risk on the table, combined with the lack of clarity that we even had with ourselves, and that evolves over time, and as the stakes get higher and people's lives intersect with work, intersect with like, wait, how did we end up here, right? And then all of a sudden you're sitting there and you're like, wow, because we never established clarity on even the basics. Now it's like every little thing just sort of amplifies and compounds that initial uncertainty.
Yeah.
It was fine in the early days, right? When it was,
Of course, we're all sitting in a room. We're friends.
Yeah. And by the way, there was two of us and we were committing directly to master on GitHub. Like, it was fine. Everything was fine. But once we got past ICO era, I mean, really even past the DAO, like, that was not fine anymore. And so, in that situation, like our processes and our security evolved, but the company structure, like Ethereum has never been good on.
No.
We don't do companies here. We have to learn it on our own.
And I think it's great to learn from the past as well. And it's all a sign of maturity. It's like, there's a very good naivety when you are a builder and you start building things from scratch. But as things evolve and it gets more and more serious, and then you have some value and you have actual revenue, then you cannot just sit down and say, okay, everything's gonna be all right and we all gonna be friends forever. It's part of the becoming an adult, to say
We need like a Claude / command. Need a robust DAO. Just like,
well, just get the clarity, right? And that's part of some of the stuff. Well, so one of the things that I think is most sort of disappointing about the timeline for Aave and stuff is, like, in a certain sense, everyone had just got this clarity, right? The SEC finally was like, actually, JK, LOL, sorry for ruining your lives for years. And then, like, immediately it's like, it's just like little certainty, and then.
But there's something to that, right? I don't think it's a coincidence. Like, there was no way while the SEC was circling with their, goon squad, right, that Aave Labs was going to be like, hey, why don't we just take some revenue from the DAO and divert it to our private company? That was never going to happen. As soon as the SEC capitulates, then it's like, oh, well, actually, and this is the problem, right? Like, without that clarity, without the right structure in place, you can't trust that in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And I think, your point, Marc, is really important. This is a multi-billion-dollar project, right? This is not like, two people sitting in a room, hacking some stuff together anymore. Like, this is systemically important to Ethereum, to crypto. And if you don't have certainty around governance and around how the thing will operate, then that's just like a drag on the value of the entity, because no one can look at it and go, well, I know what's going to happen in this scenario. It's like, anything could happen. And so, even if you ignore governance and all of that stuff, just from a purely financial standpoint, uncertainty is bad. Like, remove the uncertainty, have clarity. Like, it's good for everyone if everyone knows how things will work.
Yep. I completely agree on that. And I think it's also important for the valuation model of the asset, because as an investor, if you get a claim of the proxy of revenue of the protocol itself. That's a very thin margin business, because the way Aave works and the way Aave makes money as a protocol is by the collection of reserve factor mainly. That's the main revenue source paid by the borrowers. So part of the borrower interest paid goes back to the DAO and the protocol. And that's a very, very thin margin. Aave makes a lot of money because Aave is extremely big. But at the end of the day, everybody that builds software, and I think one of the reasons you launch Infinex is also that when you have a protocol or when you build a fat app like you are building right now and you are closer to the user, that's where the real margin can be made.
Agree.
And the closer you are to the user, the more you can monetize. And if there's no ownership on the distribution channels and the product side of things to the DAO, then there's a very hard limiter on the valuation model of the Aave asset, because you have the high margin part of the business that is controlled by a third party entity that has no obligation legally or even to redirect that revenue. And that's why ownership is important, because at the end of the day, nobody is against Stani making money, obviously, because we are very aligned, because usually when he makes money, because a big part of this portfolio is Aave, I also make money because a big part of my portfolio is also Aave. And that's the same thing for the people that hold the asset and this kind of stuff. And that is linked to the Aave success as a protocol. And so nobody is against Aave Labs doing their work. They are doing a fantastic work for nearly a decade now. What we want is clarity about the structure, and to say, okay, if you do things and you use the Aave brands, well, the Aave DAO should get their fair share. And we still discuss that from a position that is more on an eagle standpoint and less asymmetric, where you decide overnight, okay, you guys will get 10%. Or in 1 year, I changed my mind. No, it's 0. Yeah. Or no, I'm more friendly to you. It's going to be 40%. This kind of stuff. We don't want this kind of relationship. We want something clear, something stable that create trust and bring clarity to everyone involved.
And so, clarity, right? Like the Aave holders rejected this brand transfer. It got voted down, in spite of the fact that it was on like Christmas Day or whatever. And Aave Labs is now saying, okay, we will share the off protocol revenue with Aave holders. But again, I think it's less about, all right, fine, guys, we'll give you this because this didn't go well, and more about now saying, well, we'd prefer if it's not discretionary. Right? We'd prefer if you were obligated to do this thing, because what happens in 10 years' time if, the Aave front end's making $1 billion a year in front end revenue for some reason, right? Then,
or what happens if, like, the question for me, right? And it's very hypothetical, right? But what if the front end starts doing something that actually works against the DAO? Like, actually against the DAO?
No, that would never happen. Taylor.
And there are a lot of incentives that make it unlikely to happen, but like that is like a scary future state of things. And again, I don't think this is going to happen, but right, I think everyone is looking at this and saying like, oh, they redirected the revenue, but they could, when you control the front end, you can do a lot.
Fork, just to be clear, they could fork. This is like, we can't live in fantasy land, right? They could fork the protocol if they have the main entry point to the protocol. And I don't think anyone is saying that this will happen. But what happens if, something happens to Stani and some person inside of Aave Labs turns up and goes, Stani was a nice guy, but like, honestly, like, fuck this DAO stuff, right? And we're going to fork it, and we're going to take 100% of the revenue. And sure, you might say, well, people aren't going to follow that, but some people will. And so, that is that
level of ownership of this brand asset is that if tomorrow Stani wants to do AaveLabs.com and do his own front end, his own protocol, he should get 100% of the revenue on that.
Sure.
The issue is doing this kind of thing on Aave.com, because the DAO and the protocol and Stani as well, and Labs, everyone worked very hard and spent hundreds of millions of dollars in incentive, in development, in research, in risk parameters, all this kind of stuff, to build the muscle memory that if you want to do on-chain lending, you type Aave.com on your browser and then you end up on Aave. And that's what has value. And what is important is to make sure that a more likely scenario, let's say Aave Labs raise from equities and do an IPO in 5 years, in 10 years, and I wish them the best. I wish them for that to happen and to be $1 billion company on itself. What happens if there's a administration council that decide that, well, Stani, you're a great CEO. Thank you for your vision and thank you for being a founder. But now the big boys are in place. I'm BlackRock and I will sit at your share. Goodbye. Is your share goodbye? And then decide to implement many things that are not so decentralized anymore or not so aligned with the token anymore.
That's a very
likely scenario.
Aligned with DAO governance?
Maybe not naturally, or maybe they are, but the thing is that these kind of things happen in techs and in startup every single day for the past decades. And if we have no recourse and if we have no ownership of this kind of asset from the DAO, we cannot prevent that. And that's not serious for $1 billion protocol.
Yeah. You have no recourse, and that drives the uncertainty. It also just drives, I think there's this thing where, on the one hand, the DAO governance can be very inefficient and drama filled, but it also just naturally lends itself to everyone assuming that they're talking their bags and assuming this malicious intent, even when there is none. It's been really prevalent with this specific drama where everyone's like, you're just talking your bags, blah, blah. And I'm like, these are I don't know. I find that super insulting because, all of the players involved are actually looking out for Aave, above all. It's just in the details of what Aave is. But, you can imagine that the conversation and the governance and everything would just be, it would be easier. There'd be more clarity and people could focus on building and delivering new value if they weren't expending all this energy arguing about whose bags, who's aligned where and who's trying to get the best for their bags and whatever, ultimately the goal is to build and to deliver value and to iterate and to do all of these things. And these sorts of things just they just get in the way. We have to get past these barriers.
So I have one question for Marc before we wrap up the Aave conversation. So Aave started as ETHLend, and it was okay. It wasn't going amazingly well, right? And then Stani turned up and said, what if we change the name to Aave, which is Finnish for ghost? So Stani, as I can only assume the president of Finland, has some claim over the Finnish language, right? And he was like, hey, we'll change it to Aave. And then from there, it kind of went parabolic, right? So you could pretty much point at the proximate cause of all of the success of Aave as the rebrand to Aave. What if you just pay Stani some money, give him $5 million for the name, and maybe we can settle it all like that?
I think there's zero opposition to that in the DAO side. The issue, and I think the situation escalated because Labs didn't want to negotiate. Basically, what they did is that they went to the forum and they flipped the negotiation table saying, we own everything, we own the asset, and fuck you. That was basically the first message. Then it was more a constructive approach that was very welcome. And if we are at the last update, basically what happened 5 days ago, is that Stani went back to the forum and said, okay, guys, the communication was not so great. We're going to work with you guys to do the revenue and discuss the IP, this kind of stuff. So at the end of the day, I don't want to antagonize anybody and paint anybody in the situation as the villain. People love binary stuff, but I think it's clear from our conversation that everyone involved in this debate is looking for the best of the Aave protocol itself. So we most likely going to end up with what we call a phase 2. So the proposition was phase 1. We should have a mandate as the DAO to seek ownership of this brand asset. And phase 2 was, okay, how do we do things? And the idea was phase 1 is short term, give a mandate, give a signal from the DAO to Aave Labs to say, okay, we want this to happen. And phase 2 is this is how it's going to happen and how it's going to be implemented. And we are working constructively to build phase 2. And I think Aave Labs is now in a position to discuss these kind of things. And I'm very optimistic for the future of that.
Yeah. I think you'll get there. And I think, even 2-3 weeks ago when Kain and I were discussing this, we had faith that it would, everyone would get through, but we were going to enjoy the drama.
It's working is that we have the historical market data on that. And so earlier this year in February, if I remember correctly, Stani went to the forum and said, hey, we're going to do Horizon. It's going to be a real world asset and there's going to be a second token. And I was not very happy with that. And the token holder as well. And say, well, there's not going to be a second token. And obviously you can have a revenue share. We love the idea of having real world asset. And we think Horizon is a great idea. But the second token, it's not going to be an option. And there's no second token on that. And I think everybody, at the end of the day, it's simple game theory. Every actor will look for their best personal interest. But what we need to do is to make sure the Nash equilibrium is somewhere that benefits everybody. So no single party, not the DAO, not me, the ICI, not BGD, the core developers, not labs, the maintainer of the front end and the brand have too much power. And we end up in the situation that is less asymmetric and better for the protocol itself. And I think Aave has a historical way, as historical proof to say, okay, we find good solution and that's for the best of Aave.
Yeah. I have a question about, so in the ideal world, right? You have the protocol, you have the DAO, and then you have these other entities sort of around that are doing really good, tangible work that is like for the benefit of the protocol, not necessarily the benefit of like the DAO, but for the protocol. The DAO is also sort of one of those, right? The DAO is also supposed to be serving the protocol and the token holders in the future, right? The front end is, I think, more important than DeFi has ever really made it out to be. That is literally the thing that has the relationship with the users. Every time someone stands up and claims that a user can go interact with the contracts raw, like, I just laugh. I'm sorry. That's not how the world works, guys. But I'm curious if you guys are thinking about, like, ideally, there's actually some sort of baked in incentives or rewards or something for the front ends, right? The people that have that relationship with the user, so that they can build their thing. They can do so in a way that's like a sustainable business, right? They can serve the users and give them, say, access to Aave and let them like unlock that value. And doing that, they're incentivized to do that, right? Like, again, they can have a really sustainable business doing that. I think that's sort of what, I guess, the crux of the issue is here, though, right? It's like Stani is saying, like, we have the front end, like, we should get the rewards for that because we are the one that has the relationship with the user. And that's not wrong. Like, you do, in my opinion, if you want to have great front ends and great experiences for users, you have to reward those things, right? Because they need to be able to be aligned to serve the users and the protocol on the other end. And they need to have the resources.
It's
like
hard, right? Like it's a hard thing to, especially because the founder of the protocol is also the guy building the front end, because it turns out that people don't just turn up and build front ends for you like we thought they might. All right, Marc, I'll let you wrap up Aave and then we'll move on to the next topic.
Yeah. So to wrap up, there's two different things. So you have the front ends and you want to incentivize builders to build on top of it. And what we did in 2020 was a referral program, and I think we should bring that back. So we incentivize people building on top of Aave, and we redirect part of the protocol revenue to those builders. And I think now we are mature, and especially after these events, to bring back these sort of things, to invite every builders to build upon Aave front end, but also other kind of application, because the protocol allow it. The second conversation, and that's the most important one, is the domain. Because no matter where you are, the reason Stani had this reaction initially is that he knows that if he builds aavelabs.com, it's not going to have the same traffic. Like everybody loves Stani, and I'm part of his supporter, despite what people want to believe. But I don't think there will be as much traffic on aavelabs.com compared to aave.com. And what's
Benny.com? Let's just
oh, another random Finnish word.com. So that's the situation. And I think the domain should remain to the DAO and operated by the DAO. And if the DAO should build a domain itself, there's a large treasury on the DAO and there's a lot of competitive builders out there. But I think the best one out there to do that is Aave Labs. They just need to have a proper and clear relationship with the DAO on how to operate that and or where the revenue share is defined from a position of ownership of the DAO. That will be about this topic.
Multi-Chain Advisors is an emerging technology growth firm that has helped create over $50 billion in enterprise value for more than 80 clients, like PIF, MoonPay Commerce, and Wormhole. They've worked with some of the largest and most impactful companies in the space. They're the partner you want when you're navigating markets and trying to break out from the noise. They help navigate TGEs, go-to-market, BD, and partnerships, capital markets advisory, PR, media placements, KOL activations, and more, driving execution from launch to scale. Their results are measurable. To learn more and start building real traction today, visit multichainadv.com. Mantle has entered a new phase as the distribution layer connecting TradFi and on-chain liquidity. To accelerate this vision, the Mantle Global Hackathon 2025 is inviting developers to build scalable RWA and DeFi products. Why build on Mantle? It's an ecosystem built for builders. You get direct access to Bybit's 7 million plus users for potential listing exposure, support from the $4 billion Mantle treasury, and mentorship from top VCs like Spartan and Animoca brands. With 6 tracks prioritizing RWAs and RealFi, and a $150,000 prize pool plus grants, this is your chance to deploy on a high-performance modular L2. Register now. The link is in the show notes.
So Infinex. Infinex. Oh my God. So Tay,
What happened?
So
What happened, Kain?
So the other day, you were like, oh, you kind of became the main character for like, I don't even know what that was. I've forgotten what that even was about. Why people were losing it. I don't know what I did 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago when you said that. But someone pointed out on the timeline a couple days ago, they're like, Infinex somehow has become the main character of the last like week. It's an interesting dynamic. We can get into like why is everyone so obsessed with Infinex and the ICO. But I've said this many times. I'm a long-standing fan of ICOs. I think ICOs are a much better way of raising capital. I think they're a much better way of distributing tokens. We stopped doing ICOs because of reasons. We stopped doing ICOs and started doing airdrops, which just created like the most perverse, bad incentives. And so, when we launched Infinex, we're like, okay, let's do a token sale. This is in 2024. But it was still, a little on the edge, right? And so we did this NFT sale. And in fairness, at the time, it took about a month for us to kind of get everyone to understand what we're trying to do. Because many people were like, NFTs, like what, like, why are you doing this? Doesn't make sense. And eventually they got it. And so then, we're about to do TG and we're about to release an actual token, an ERC20 token. And so I was like, okay, before we do that, there's a new Sonar meta. Kobe has turned up and said, I'm going to like help fix capital formation this cycle, right? Built Echo, built Sonar. And I'm like, this is good. We should use this. We should support it. We should go out and make it work. But the parameters we chose were frankly garbage from the perspective of everyone on the timeline. They hated the fact that it was locked up. They didn't like the FTV, even though the FTV was lower than what the FTV was a year ago for the NFT sale. But yeah, everyone hated it. And then on top of that, we had a really low cap because we were like, let's make it as easy as possible for small participants to get in and not get blown out by whales. So it was like 200 to 2.5K. And everyone hated it. Everyone was unsatisfied by it. And so then we're like, okay, let's change the terms, which everyone also hates when terms change because we're autistic and we don't like the rules changing on us. And so, yeah, we're now in this weird situation where like, I think we had raised like 500 grand, 600 grand in 3 days. We changed the terms. It's now 2 million. You know, the momentum is not amazing. And I still think it will close. I think people are waiting till the last day. There's not really a huge advantage to going early. But it's just my takeaway from all of this, right, is the timeline is like so cynical, so burnt out, so cooked. Like they feel like so much money has been extracted from them that someone turning up being like, hey, I'm going to sell you tokens cheaply. Like there's just no belief whatsoever that that's not max extraction. And it's really hard to overcome that sentiment right now. You know, the trenches are really cooked.
Yeah. No, the timeline is actually super bizarre on this one. They also love calling you names. We're the most narcissistic, disingenuous. Kain is the worst person on earth. And I'm like, wait, but are we upset at the terms or do we just not like Kain? I can't decide.
I think you know, the funny thing is, right, that like this is not the first time that I've been the subject of like max FUD, right? Like there was a period of time, you guys might remember when Synthetix switched from Chainlink to Pyth, which, by the way, I was the person holding back that for years, right? And all of the engineers were like, we need to use Pyth, Chainlink doesn't work for us, etc. And I resisted and finally capitulated. And as soon as I capitulated, the Link Marines came out and they were like, you're the worst founder ever. You're a scammer. Like it was, and I was like, bro, I was the one defending you guys for a long time. So this is not the first time that people have decided they don't like me. And look, like a little bit in fairness to you, Marc, a little bit like you, I can be a bit of a dick on the timeline. You know, I can be a bit aggressive.
I think everyone in this room has the same truth. Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting.
What do people want though? Because I thought that we were bringing down the ICO for fairness and stuff, and then
unlock tokens. That's it.
If I may, from an external perspective, I think part of the reason, and I think I would like to get your input and feedback on that based on experience, is that I think linking the early days of Infinex with Kato bring audience, and that's good for this kind of protocol and especially application on this sense, because that brings reports and that brings attention and audience, and you want audience when you are close to the users. But also I think most Kato audience is garbage. That's my personal opinion on it. And I think Kato did a lot of wrong in the ecosystem and in the discourse. I hate the fucking yappers, and I hate the reply bots and all these kind of things that was bring within FoFi. And I think if you look at the real situation, there's no real big reason to complain. But I think part of the audience that is inside the Infinex ecosystem that came from Kaito is not very value add, and most likely part of the reason why there's so many vocal minority that is so aggressive.
I think it's interesting. Yesterday, I had a long thread where someone who works for Synthetix, right? Like someone I respect who works for Synthetix. It was very easy to kind of be like, these are all like people value extracting. They're just mad because they didn't get money for posting AI slop or whatever. And I think that there are some examples of that. But I woke up yesterday and Tom Mitchell-Hill had written this thread where he's like, guys, this has gone like too far now, right? Like, okay, there's some reasonable arguments for like why Infinex has done some not amazing things. But in the middle of that thread, He said, I've got friends who participated in this and they got rugged. And I read that and I was like, huh. Because in my mind, I've been sort of, we said to people like, look, we got overrun by bots. We got overrun by like bot farms, AI slop, people trying to just max extract, right? And so we said, look, we're going to cut this off and there's going to be some people who miss out and they're going to feel sad about it. But the alternative is that all of the money gets extracted by like these, bot farms, right? If we don't do anything, it's just, that's the terminal state. And if someone doesn't stop this, then it's going to be terrible, right? The flip side is that there were actual people who spent, maybe weeks or months posting, and yeah, they might have used AI a little bit or whatever, but they were on the timeline posting about Infinex and they got rugged by this rich asshole plutocrat. And I can see why they'd be like, fuck that guy. Like, give me my money. I did the thing. It doesn't feel fair. And so for those people, the ones, because like, it makes no sense to me. If you're a bot farm, like Eigen, there was a lot of FUD around Eigen, right? And a lot of it was manufactured because people were really upset, the ones who were max extracting the farmers. And so they created this like but there was also a cohort of real people who genuinely had put money in for a long time, didn't get the yield they expected, were really upset. And over time, those people stayed around and they were still mad and they were still upset about it because they didn't forget about it, right? And at some point after 6 months, you go, this is probably not a bot farm that's still on the timeline fudding Infinex. Like, these are probably real people who are still mad because they feel like they did the work and they didn't get paid. And, if you were a trencher grinding, expecting to make, a couple grand for, a few months work and you got nothing out of it, I can see that, right? And so this post was a bit of a wake-up call for me to be like, yeah, okay, we might not love InfoFi, it might not be amazing, but someone set up a game. Kaito set up this game, people turned up and played the game, and then they got rugged, and they're reasonably mad about it. And I think that's actually a fair point, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does, I don't know, it just sucks whenever, like, and this is just so common in crypto, it's like the initial goals with these, right, was like it was like founded in like goodness, right? It's like, yo, like, you don't have to have $1 bazillion in order to get it on this project. Like, if you are a supporter of the project, they're going to reward you. And the way that we are going to figure out, what the reward is based on your support. And the support is going to be measured in things like talking about it, supporting it, being part of the community, also, GitHub contributions, right? With all these different metrics. And then all of it just got freaking destroyed.
Overrun. It gets
completely overrun.
But I think,
and
Mark, you have a strong view of this, right? Like, crypto is adversarial. If the game theory is bad, the game will be lost, right? Like,
that's why I was blaming not the players, but I was blaming the game. I think the InfoFi is a net negative for the ecosystem, and that's why I did not participate in this kind of thing. But I will be interested by your opinion. Like, what do you think went wrong for you guys that went well for MegaETH? Because if I remember MegaETH, they also did an NFT sale with the fluffy stuff. And they also did like some eco sale with a low cap. I think it was like $3,000 maximum per participant, this kind of stuff. And I have the feeling from an external perspective that things went pretty well for them. So what is your opinion that changed?
I think two things. They were the first ones to get a dashboard. We were the third ones. And somewhere in that window, it went from Kaito is this kind of curated group of people, and then it went parabolic. Kaito opened it up to anyone. There was no filtering anymore. And that's when the bot farms and AI slop just went parabolic. And so MegaETH was able to like get in early enough and get out and kind of get out of the way of it. And me, I see a fight and I run towards it, not away from it. And I was like, this InfoFi stuff, if we don't change it. Like from the inside, I was like, this is going to destroy the timeline. It's going to, it's like absolutely net negative for everyone involved, even the people who are playing the game. We need to change this game. And so I kind of put my foot down and said, we're not going to play the game this way. We're going to stop it and we're going to do something else. But there were people who were already in the game. And they're like, hang on a second, I've been playing the game for 2 months and now you're saying this is a bad game and I shouldn't play it. And they were angry about it. And I was like, sorry, bro, like game theory. And they were like, fuck your game theory. Give me my money. I don't care about
Fuck your game theory.
Yeah, like I'm like this. If we reward people, you can imagine you've got this guy, right, who's like, sitting, in his mansion, who's like, hey, sorry guys, like the game theory is bad. You can't get the $1,000 that I promised you. Like that's how you get a revolution. They come and burn. That's like seriously, like, and fair enough, right? Like I'm surprised that I don't have people outside my house picketing. I think if Australia was a little bit closer to the rest of the world, people probably would have went over here and been like holding up signs like, fuck this guy, right? So like, and I get it, right? I genuinely get it, but I'm also retarded and I felt self-righteous. And, this let's go back to the Aave conversation, right? There's two people on both sides. They both think that they're right. They both are trying to do what they think is the right thing. And it's easy to become entrenched and dig yourself in and go, no, I'm right. The way that Kaito played this was wrong. And anyone who was harmed by me trying to fix it is just collateral damage, bro. Like, sorry, I don't know what to tell you, right? But that's not a very sympathetic view in hindsight, right? Like that's not going to win you a lot of friends from the people who are playing the game. And so I was like, hey, okay, yesterday I was like, I'm sorry, like we mishandled this. And so to your question, Mark, like the best thing that I could have done for Infinex was just pay out the bots, let it happen, let someone else fight the battle, and let someone else get wrecked by it. But I'm an idiot, so I decided to fight the battle, and we paid the consequences. So let's move on. We got a couple more topics, and this kind of ties in interestingly, right? This
I was about to say there's an amazing transition here if we have a brain.
So prediction markets and insider trading. Now I am from the crypto anarchist wing of the prediction market community, and like I'm not quite at assassination markets, although there were some OG people that believed that was a good idea. But like my very strong view is that the goal of prediction markets, it was not supposed to be a fucking sports betting platform.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have sports betting. It exists. We've got that technology. Like we are supposed to be creating markets where anyone with any information, all of that information is channeled into a single venue, and we learn about the world. We learn about what we think the weather will be, and if someone has some amazing magical weather prediction system, they can express their belief in their accuracy of their weather prediction system, and they can get us better information about what the weather will be. And that's useful to the world because knowing what the weather is really helpful. And so prediction market,
and it offsets the fact that right now, which is the keto problem, right? Right now, anyone can just go and say anything that they want for free, for literally free. And if there's a financial reward for that, they will flood everything, right? And that actually degrades the conversation, degrades the value of the information, makes everything untrustworthy. And so by basically backing these statements with actual money, you can actually make the information more reliable. That's the whole entire point.
But part of the tacit kind of rules of this, right? If we believe it, if we're prediction market purists, is that anyone with any information must be hyper efficient. There must be no gates to it. Anyone with any information must be able to participate in these markets, because otherwise the information is imperfect. And we're back to where we started. That now, there's a whole bunch of, places where you could say, yeah, but like reputationally, this is a bad idea, right? So we tell our staff, you're not allowed to trade on Polymarket.
Yeah. And by the way, we have very strict guidelines, policies, all sorts of things, right? That are baked into employment contracts, but are also, just like best practices, right? We have these for PR things, we have these for legal things, all right. Insider trading is a really basic one at any company. Like it is what it is, right? Evolving those for to take into account prediction markets, very easy. Very, very easy.
Yeah. Now, but again, just to be clear, right? Like my view is that someone participating in a prediction market, right? If at the end of the day, especially if it's an uncertain outcome, let's say that someone knew how they were going to vote, right? Someone at Andreessen knows how Andreessen's going to vote on the Aave proposal, and I don't think they hold Aave, right? So this is a very hypothetical scenario, right? It is valuable for everyone to know that information as soon as possible. If Andreessen is sitting there waiting until the last minute and they're going to rug the vote, right? And someone from Andreessen knows how they're going to vote, and they go and, like, first of all, not securities. It's not even, in my view, insider trading for them to do that, but it is net positive for everyone to have the information, and someone should go and do that. They should express that view if they know what's going to happen, because we will have more perfect information about the world and we can make better predictions and do better things. That is aggressive, like, I'm not going to lie, but reputationally, it is absolutely not a good idea for Andreessen to have their employees running around betting on prediction markets as to, like, what is the next round that Andreessen's going to close, even if that is
because you're looking at it from two different perspectives, right? The first is that the more information and the faster that information gets to the prediction market, the better off, like the more fair it gets, because then everyone has sort of like the same information and they can assign a monetary value to it, and therefore they can trust it more or less, etc. On the other hand, there's a bro sitting in an office somewhere who just made 50K and you didn't, right? And so there is still a core unfairness to this, and especially when it comes to things where there are already controls in place to disseminate the information at a very specific time to allow that fairness, right? So, like, again, like if we go back to the OpenSea situation, right, with Nate, like, he was sitting in this position where he was deciding what projects were going to go on the front page, right? And then he went and bought those things because he knows that he's going to put it on the front page and then the price is going to go up. Okay.
Now, but if he had been, and again, this is like very on the edge here, but if instead of going and buying the thing, right, now, whether an NFT is a security or whatever, if instead of buying an NFT, he had gone onto a prediction market, and there was a prediction market for, like, what will the NFT thing be, and this is like not a contrived example. Like, I'll give you a very specific example. If, let's say, Nate knew next Wednesday he's going to put pudgy penguins on the front page of OpenSea, and so he expresses that and votes on it, he could get hit by a bus. He could get fired. Things could happen. Like, he is not God. He doesn't know that that's going to happen, right? Expressing a view through a prediction market of, based on the information that I know about the world, my prediction is this. He has no control over whether that thing will actually happen, in the sense that, like, all kinds of things, they could decide they're not going to do projects on the front page anymore. So there is still a measure of, like, imperfect information, and
there is, but I still think that it feels unfair that he would get that money because he's in the position to make the decision, but then also there is now an incentive for someone else to put the bet and then pay Nate to put that on the front page or whatever, right? Like, you can just keep going down the rabbit hole. And ultimately, the goal needs to be more fairness, right? More people have more opportunities, and there's less of these privileged situations. And that's actually what prediction markets are attempting to solve, right? Is like get rid of the privileged situations.
By disseminating the information as quickly as possible. Remove information asymmetry as quickly as possible. At some point, like if you wind it all the way back, there is some information asymmetry at some point. But most of the time in these markets, especially now, right, like they're not that liquid. So, he would have made less money probably buying shares in a Polymarket market than he made from buying the NFTs, right? Because there has to be someone to counter trade him. And that is the other thing, right? Like by buying the NFT, he's taking money away from someone else who was holding that NFT, right? And like I get that fairness, but if you are
insider trading is usually illegal.
100%, it is, right? And he went to jail. But if you are playing on Polymarket, and this is the thing that I think is really important, like if you don't understand this dynamic or you don't have a strong view of what a prediction market is for, and you think that you're just doing like sports betting, then like I'm sorry, but you're a fucking idiot. Like I don't care what you say. Like if you are participating in a prediction market and you're like, no, like someone can't know information that I don't know, that is literally the entire point. That is literally the entire point, right?
I think we need to separate from, we need a new classification for what like this is, because the main issue that I have with the conversation is that everyone's just calling everything insider trading. No, insider trading is when a person in an actual privileged position actually acts on actually confidential information, like actual work product.
But also importantly, in the US, the point of insider trading laws is not to stop the fairness in the market. It is to stop someone expropriating information that they got from a privileged position and you're stealing from the company that you got the information from. It's not about the people that are trading against you on the NASDAQ, right? Like it's not that's not the issue.
The shareholders.
Exactly, right? You're taking money away from the entity itself. And so, like in this case,
it gets really interesting. You're not.
So a few hours before the U.S. So, like, first of all, U.S. government, it's not even a company, right? But a few hours before, the U.S. announced the capture of Maduro, betting activity spiked, right? And a newly created account bet, I think, about 30 grand that Maduro would exit and made 400 grand in profit. So the timing was concerning, right? Because of insider information. But this is not it's about the head of state of Venezuela being abducted. This is not insider trading, right?
It's not. And that's the thing, is that when people call the Maduro bet insider trading, one, show me anything that shows that information was insider, right? There's a lot of threads on Twitter right now, and let me tell you, especially the like look on chain dudes who are like, I'm a sleuth, look at me. They're wrong. Like, there are a lot of really bad traces out there, specifically around this one. Okay. Number two, we're not talking about a company. We're literally talking about like the accusations are against the intelligence community of the United States government. That is a big accusation to make. You are saying that someone whose entire job and livelihood and career, right, it is like really criminal if they disseminate information.
They're saying it's barren, right? Like everything.
I mean, they said, and they said it was like a world financial guy, but like, I don't know. I looked on Chain for 2 seconds and I was like, someone knows who it is, but it's not this bro that's tweeting about it right now. They're just making stuff up. There was one where they were like, we correlated the Binance deposits and withdrawals, and I was like, do you guys have any idea how much volume is on Binance? You're telling me that these two $20 deposits are associated? That's your proof? That is the world financial guy? Like, I'm sorry. Shut up and get off of my timeline.
Yeah.
It's a wild accusation. Okay. And I think that like in a lot of other situations with these insider trading things, it's a much more interesting conversation. I think that if we actually want to be productive and have a solid path forward, like the tweeters absolutely need to stop accusing people in the U.S. government of insider trading on Polymarket. Like, it was absurd. This is
But even if
completely
they were, the market where the money was made was not the NASDAQ. It was Polymarket. It is a prediction market. If you are counter trading that and you have no information, you are a retard. I'm sorry, but like, you shouldn't be trading that market. There are people who have information asymmetry. If you're like, I have some thoughts about Maduro and whether or not he is going to be in power next January, and you're just some like pleb sitting in your basement, what are you doing? That is not like, you're like, at that point, you are just gambling, and someone who has more information is going to take your money. And instead of crying about it on the timeline, you should really think about your life choices. You should not be trading with a market that you have no information about. That's not
People are free to do whatever they want with their money.
Of course. No. Like, whatever you want.
tweet about it. Don't let me see it.
Don't cry about it afterwards, right? Like, so.
I think there's 3 layers here. So I'm very aligned with you, Kain, on the fact that even in economic theory, like the faster information is delivered to the market, the better it is. And I think no one disagrees with that. The second layer is the law itself. And insider trading is illegal in most jurisdiction. I cannot name one jurisdiction where you can just do whatever you want in this kind of... well, probably, yes. And the intent of the law is to make sure the counterparties are not there's fairness to the counterparties. So when you are doing insider trading, as you said, you are stealing your own company, and you are also stealing from the counterparty of the market that don't have your information. That's something that is very clear about the law. And it's about securities and these kind of things. But I think the third layer is on the prediction market itself. And do we consider, like, to me, the parallel with Nate from OpenSea is very clear. Instead of trading the asset itself, if, as you said, he traded on some prediction market, is Pudgy Penguin going to be listed before January, these kind of things, I think the damage is completely different. Because on one side, you are an insider that buy and dump and retain an asset directly because you have information, and that information lead to people buying that asset, and then you sell to other people on the market at a premium in order to generate a profit. On the second situation, you are bringing information to the market, and people can trade accordingly. And if you see a position like that as a market participant, you take that information and you react. And you can decide to buy the asset or not on the market and play the market rules as you want. And I think it's a fairly different situation. But the thing is that there's fairness, there's philosophy, and there's the fucking law. And usually we have to follow the fucking law, even if we don't agree with it, even if the pure theoretical alignments will say otherwise. The law is the law. And if you are an employee and you are doing this kind of stuff and your company wants to fire you, they have the full right to do so.
For sure.
And they have the right to implement their own policy.
In the UN government, that they could put you in jail.
Yeah, no, I mean,
throw you in a, like,
guys, disseminating like military secrets before a major military operation is insanely criminal. And that's the funniest bit, is like, oh yeah, and one of these bros is like, let me go 830K on Polymarket real quick. Sorry, like, just stop.
It's wild.
So it's wild.
So
I do think, Marc, I really appreciate your perspective that, like, and I just want to emphasize this, right? There is a relationship between employees and companies, and those are policies. Those are part of your employment contract. That does not necessarily mean that, like, every single person on earth needs to abide by that, right? Like, everything is going to be different. And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind, right? It is what it is. And for some companies, depending on the situation, depending on the employees, depending on, there's a lot of companies these days that don't even have employees. It's just, it's like a DAO, right? If they don't want to enforce these strong policies, because there's no risk to their business, there's no loss to their business, that's fine. That's on them. It'll be really interesting to see how the nation state laws that apply to all the citizens and all the companies within that jurisdiction, how those evolve. I don't think it's as simple as, and I think that we need to get away from this idea of insider trading.
It's just cope. It's cope from people who are trading on Polymarket who shouldn't be, and then they lose and they get sad. Like that, like genuinely, that's the thing, right? Like,
But okay, if all low comes from that usually.
yeah, I mean,
There's people that are doing that are getting some wrong in the society, and then they complain to the society itself and say, "Hey, that should not be allowed because I'm very sad." That's usually what a law comes from.
It's where the law comes from. Yeah,
It literally is.
okay. But, to your point, there's a tension here between like financial theory and the law, right? Like, if we turn up and someone did, right? Richie Torres said, all right, we're gonna introduce this like integrity in financial prediction markets act, right? And it's possible that you create laws that make prediction markets bad and less useful, right? Like you can have the unintended consequences of like, by creating this law where you can't trade if you have information, we have actually defeated the entire
ruined it. Yeah, and made it more privileged almost, right? Because now people are operating on assumptions that aren't necessarily true. That's a whole different world. In my opinion, Polymarket needs to be deeply researching this and understanding the user perspectives and eliminating the gap.
They can't get a Polygon. Come on. Like, you want them to do deep philosophical research about like...
No, they need to close the gap of understanding. That's on them, in my opinion. Right? They have the relationship with the user. When their users have misunderstandings and are sad, they should make them not sad.
Yeah. Fair.
And the way that you do that is mostly, you can bribe them after the fact and make them less hurt or whatever. But I think, to your point, why are people under this assumption in the first place? And it's because so many people are on these platforms thinking that it's like sports betting.
They think it's a gambling site.
Right.
They think they're betting on like the Raiders to score 14 points. And
that's only going to get worse unless Polymarket or Kulchi go and instead of doubling down on the sports betting comparisons, actually sort of lay the stage and reposition this in people's minds as a fundamentally different venue, because it is.
The puzzle is, though, that's boring. And sports betting makes a lot of money. And so you're going to have this, really perverse incentive to blur the lines between go and bet on a baseball game and Maduro's capture.
Right.
I don't see Market makes most of their money on sport betting currently. I think the largest market ever was the Trump election.
Yeah.
Well, the election was big, but right now, at least, most of the volume is in these short-term sports betting things, and you're seeing it's just a huge conversation right now. But also in sports, there are criminal, but there are also contractual agreements. There are very, very, very defined rules on how the players, on the managers, and what can be done with information, who can do it, and every once in a while, someone decides that they're going to sell out and it's going to make the game unfair. And that is the leagues themselves, right, are the primary enforcer of those laws.
And it's the most detrimental to them. So they should be, right? Like the incentives are there, right? If you have coaches and players that are rigging games, people will lose interest in your multi-billion-dollar.
And so it's on them to correct those incentives. Right. And that's why the leagues crack those incentives. There are laws in most states that also play a role here. But it's because the fairness of the game is more important than the fairness of the gambling markets. Right. But the gamblers are gambling on the fact, like they must operate under the assumption that the game is being fair. If the game is rigged, the gamblers get screwed, but also the players get screwed. Also, the league gets screwed. Also, the fans get screwed. The people that aren't gambling money, that are there for the love of the game, get screwed. And so that's why you have then the laws and the policies come into place to correct those perverse incentives, to make sure that it's of sufficient fairness, right? And then everyone's happy. And I think that a similar thing is going to have to happen here, right? This isn't like as simple as insider trading. It's where are the incentives? What ultimately is fair for everyone, including the participants, right? Not just like some stock over here that's completely separate from Polymarket. Like, how do you what are the baseline rules and the assumptions? Let's define those. Let's define what happens if someone breaks those rules, right? Let's enforce them.
Straight to jail.
Straight to Polymarket jail.
Yeah.
Polymarket
has their own jail that they set up for people who manipulate. So we've got one final topic to cover before we wrap up. I know we're a little bit over, so let's try and keep it quick. But we would be remiss without mentioning Kyle Samani. We missed out on Kyle Samani last week because we didn't have a show. We would have been talking about the fact that he beat a cleaner with my 25K Ethereum.
Oh my god!
I know.
Did you pay him?
Yeah, I paid him. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Kain lost a bet a year and a half ago to Kyle, and he came to collect like 2 weeks ago.
Honestly, it's the most classic Kyle thing. But before the bet was even over, it was like 4 hours before the end of the year. He's like, "Where's my money?" I was like, "Have you been thinking about this every day?" Like it was
like 400 days later.
Yeah.
Well, I still find commendable that you honor your vote because reputation is always important. And you did the bet, and it went wrong, and you paid. And I feel that's completely commendable that you followed through.
Yeah, I wasn't LARPing. Like I thought ETH was going to go to 25K. I was very sure of it, and
very optimistic.
That's why I'm cursed when it comes to buying ETH.
Yeah.
So
do you let me next time and bet on Polygon value because Labor was much more profitable and he actually backburn paid me, so I got the 50K.
Oh, nice.
So who was learning so much?
With the Polygon CEO, Marc Byron.
Yes, yeah, and he paid you.
He paid me. And it's very commendable from him, and we decide to let's move on from it and let's start working on all stuff.
Yeah, nice. So Vitalik posted this thing about ZKTLS, right? Saying the blockchain trilemma is solved. We're gonna be in this new era of like abundance of block space. And first of all, I was like, bro, we're already in that era. Gwei is like 0.0001. Right? We have enough block space, but sure. But I think he also came out and said, what is the purpose of Ethereum? What is the purpose of what he created and what we are building? Resilience was like this term that he used, right? Like minimizing the risk of failure, not optimizing for like the average cases. I think it's a way of saying DeFi without saying DeFi is my assumption. And it's about, users retaining control, so that they can't be deplatformed, so that, there's no platform risk, there's no government risk, there's no, risk of capture, all of these things that, seem quaint in 2026. But, Vitalik's out there kind of reinforcing that this is the entire point of the blockchain. And if you don't have these things, then you can't have things like Aave. No one would build Aave on top of a thing that they didn't trust was going to be able to, be resistant to capture. And it's Kyle turned up. It looked like
I'm one of the. That's actually what we did. I'm one of the reasons there's no Aave on Solana because that's not the same philosophy.
Yeah,
or not Aave on some shitty blockchain that can turn the flip off anytime, or just don't produce any block for any kind of reason, or have like the validator like decide to censor you overnight because they don't like you. All these kind of things are extremely important, and that's why some networks and some blockchain have Aave and some networks don't have it. And I think myself, I've been very adamant on that. And my philosophy is very clear for the past decade of this ecosystem. And the Aave DAO is very aligned with this, and the token holders follow too so far on this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so Kyle came in over the top and was like, shut up, Vitalik. He's stupid. Basically it was, Kyle is very tactical, right? He knows how to just get in and like.
Oh, he got me. He got
right
me.
in there, right?
Okay, so here was his tweet. He goes, so Vitalik writes this whole big post, philosophical. It's about builders and users and resiliency. And Kyle goes, so what Vitalik is explicitly telling us is the EF is not building for what users want. They're building what Vitalik wants.
And now,
What the fuck is that?
I think
so like
Bernie was the master of playing the idiot for his own motive and objectives. Like
he is a genius.
he's a genius at playing them to push his message and his doctrine out. And
So good.
some people just have to call the bluff and say, "Oh, come on, Kai, nobody believes you." No,
It was a wild one.
My hot take though is that like there must be some forcing function. Some people, within the ecosystem, must be a forcing function for these principles, or the principles will die, right? And so the fact that Vitalik, who made the thing, is still out there advocating for the core principles of why he made it, is super bullish. He could be, living on an island somewhere, right? Like, and he's still, out there advocating. Like, this is why we have founders. And yes, it's a blockchain and it's not a company, right? But this is why we have founder-led entities in the world, because the founder is the one who understands deeply why they did the thing, and they don't want it to be co-opted and turn into something that it wasn't supposed to be. So, like I saw that and I kind of laughed. I was like, all right, well played, Kyle. But also, like, in this case, and it's funny, right? Because I've been very critical of the EF for certain things, right? Like not supporting certain things, and there's this argument of credible neutrality. And at the end of the day, this is why you shouldn't let me run the EF, because I'm going to pick the things that I like and not pick the things that I don't like, right? And like, the EF, you can sit there and criticize them, but by maintaining that kind of credible neutrality, they make it accessible for everyone.
I think
and that's the core of it.
EF before. I think the issue of the EF before was they went too far in credible neutrality, and I think a lot of people say, hey, come on, guys. You have application that works. You have actual users, and you don't fucking talk about it. You keep like saying, "Hey, let's run some nodes in Nairobi," which is a great thing. Why not? But maybe you should talk about the application that actually do a great job at promoting your technology and the users that are using your technology every day. And I think the EF now is in a more consensus and better position where they actually talk about the build race, talking about it, but they are not going as far as other ecosystem to basically what Base will do or this kind of stuff to say, okay, we are Coinbase. This is the Base network. We have Coinbase Venture, and if you are a Coinbase Venture funded business, we're gonna talk more about you and put you in the front row position, which is to me a bit of the extreme, and that should not happen in the credible neutral network, because infrastructure should be neutral. So there's a spectrum here between we don't support anyone and we pick the winners and the other builders can go fuck themselves. There's a middle ground, and I think Ethereum is in a good situation right now.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, and I think that I've been critical of the EF for some of the things that they've done, but I've never disagreed with the core philosophy that the foundation, this idea that the foundation should be smaller over time and that they should basically make room and empower people to build, right? And in order to do that, like fundamentally, how do you create like an optimal environment for people to build applications, right? Part of it is not picking and choosing.
Yeah.
And we've seen this really a lot on Base, but we've also seen it on Solana, right? There's a reason that all of the Solana apps are basically the same. It's like that's what people feel like empowered to build there. Ethereum is different, and I think that there's something to be said about the fact that like you, Kain, right? Aave too, like everyone built on Ethereum, even though Vitalik didn't like DeFi.
He
Like,
was
you
like
still
doing it, and I was like, "Shut up! I'm gonna do it. I don't care." Right? Like,
right? That would have never happened on Solana or Base, right? If Jesse does not personally freaking tweet you, you're not gonna make it. Meanwhile, on Ethereum, a lot of things that Vitalik actively was like, this doesn't exist in my worldview, made it. That is a good solid platform, in my opinion.
And I think the reason is because that core ethos was credible neutrality, right? And so there's a tension there of like, don't go out and start king making, which Vitalik never did, right? And you know, even why Vitalik stopped investing in things. He's like, people, every time I invest in something, people use it to be like, Vitalik said I'm the best. Look at me, you know.
Yes, fought against this very hard. Like, it's why privacy, it's why Tornado Cash exists, right? Literally, in day one was because Vitalik wanted to be able to spread his money without people like creating an entire $1 billion industry around it. This like one bet that he made.
All right, guys. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for joining us, Marc. That was really helpful, and I appreciate your insights into the Aave ecosystem and everything else. So yeah, we'll have to have you on again some other time. So that's it for our first episode of Uneasy Money from 2026. Thank you for tuning in. If you like the episode, follow us on the Unchained feed on X, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you next week.